Now we are showing you part 1. Part 1 is asking us to build a simple D flip-flop circuit which will remember the setting until it is reset. This is our wavefront and this is our schematic diagram and this is our simulation. Now we are showing you the circuit we built. This will be our input and this will be our clock. When the clock is positive, it will set the value, and then when the clock is positive again, it will reset the value. That's all for part 1.
So now we're gonna show what we do in part 2. As you can see, this is the D flip-flop and we have built a circuit according to what is shown in the diagram. And then now we're gonna show the results that we get from the oscilloscope. The yellow color waveform is for the clock, and while the blue waveform is for the output. As you can see, the waveform shown in the oscilloscope is exactly the same as what we have shown in our lab E2. And that's all for our part 2. Moving on to part 3. So part 3 asks us to modify a counter so that it can count up from 1 to 6, and then after 6 it will count back to 1 and following on. So this is the K-maps that we have come up with, and also the Boolean equation. Below shows the schematic diagram that we have used, schematic diagram with pin number that we have used to build our circuit. Now I'm gonna show you how our circuit works. So this is our circuit. As you can see, this shows the counter. When it counts from 1 to 6, it will go back to 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then back to 1.
Move on to the last part. Part 5 is asking us to build an electronic die, and it is combining part 3 and part 4, which is using a counter to count from 1 to 6 and arrange it in a die pattern. So in part 4 we are doing the die pattern, and this is the truth table for die pattern. This is the K-map and Boolean equation, and this is the overall schematic diagram for part 5. Now we are showing the circuit we built for part 5. So there is a button for us. When we press it, it will start counting, and when we release it, it will stop the counter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And lastly, in order to give a random number, we will set the frequency to a higher frequency. So when we press, it will start counting, and when we release, it will give a random number. That's all for this part.